Hello people of the YouTube world and all who are watching this. I am Mackenzie901K. Welcome to 2025. We've been well into 2025, but with welcoming 2025, it is that time of year where we think about what we are going to be reading this year. For me specifically, I struggle when it comes to creating yearly TBRs. I don't know what it is, but there's something about a yearly TBR that just like I'm not gonna lie, it stresses me out. I'm very just overwhelmed trying to think about it because I think I look at it from like a very toxic standpoint where I'm like, these are the books that I'm reading for 2025. Like this is it. These are the books. I should not have that mindset. Anyway, as I was saying, I had to switch up the camera angle because I thought I was like in a weird, had like the camera in a weird angle. Anyway, anywho, I do have a TBR picked out here that I'm happy with, I'm satisfied with, and I'm looking at it. That's why I'm looking over here. I'm looking at the TBR. I'm pretty satisfied with it. There's not really anything else that I think I would have put on my 2025 TBR. I also want to say that I try to focus my yearly TBRs not necessarily on the books that are like releasing. I try to put my yearly TBRs as a way for me to knock off the physical books that I have on my TBRs. I also know that it is a trend right now to say that you are reading 25 books in 2025. I read 100 books from last year. While I probably could put 25 books on this TBR, that is a fourth of the books that I maybe could possibly read this year, and that just sounds like a lot. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna put myself through that. We have 11 books here that we are going to talk through, and I think without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk through my TBR. So starting off, and also we are matching, this is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. I have decided that I want to give Chloe Gong another try. I've also had this book on my TBR for a couple of years. I have had a reading experience before with Chloe Gong, and that was Immortal Longings. That book I really did not like at all, but I'm hoping that this will be more fun. So I believe that this is a YA fantasy and Immortal Longings was an adult. And this I also think takes place in Shanghai. Yes, it does. It's 1931 in Shanghai, and the sages step for a new decade. And I believe there's spies in here and things like that. I kind of wanted to go into this a little bit blind just because I've always been interested in this book, but I don't really want to know too much about it going in. All I know is that it's spies and it takes place in Shanghai in 1931. Yeah, it literally says it back here. Oh my gosh, and Cassandra Clare has a blurb on the back. It's Cassandra Clare's thing back here says an electrifying. Why is that so hard to say? Cassandra Clare's blurb says an electrifying swashbuckling tale. And then it also says in big font here, assassin, immortal, spy. I'm intrigued. We're switching gears from fantasy for just a second, and we're going to talk about some romance that I have on my TBR. So this is the first book that I have on my TBR for this year, and this is The Buccaneers. This is a show that my mom and I watched last year. I really loved the show. I fell in love with the show. I absolutely adored it. I cannot wait to read the book to see what it's like. I have not really ever heard any reviews or anything. I have seen a couple of people talking about this book, but not really super duper in depth. So what I know about this is it's like a socialite Victorian era. It pretty much follows these girls, and they are from America. They end up getting this opportunity to go to England to be a part of like the season. And if you have watched Bridgerton before, and if you're familiar with how Bridgerton works, where they have like the season where the girls pretty much come out into society, that's what this is. These girls are from America, so the Brits, they make fun of them. It's a very hilarious tale. I'm intrigued, and we're also supposed to be getting a season 2 at some point this year for Buccaneers, and I'm so excited. I need to know. There was a cliffhanger. I need to know what happens next. Then we have the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love by India Holton. This, if I read this and no other India Holton book that I have on my shelves, this will be the first India Holton book that I will read. I do have India Holton's other series. I don't know what it's called. I think it's the Distressed Damsel series. That I could be very wrong on. I have been interested in India Holton before. I really want to pick up India Holton's work because I've heard such great things about her writing, and especially about this book in general. I've heard such great things on. I have no idea what it's about. I just know that it follows an ornithologist. It says, rival ornithologists hunt through England for a rare magical bird in this historical fantasy rom-com reminiscent of Indiana Jones, but with manners, tea, and helicopter parasols. How interesting. Reminiscent of Indiana Jones, huh? Intriguing. Very maybe you need to pick this up very soon type of intriguing. How fun. Okay, that is this one. I'm excited. I'm excited to read that now. I didn't know that it was reminiscent of Indiana Jones. Next we have the Stolen Heir. This is the sequel companion series duology, I think it's done now, to the Cruel Prince series, or the Folk of the Air series. This one follows Oak, and Oak in the Folk of the Air trilogy, he was like 11, 12, but some things go down. I'm not going to spoil the Cruel Prince for you, but Oak does eventually become a pretty important character, so I'm interested to see what this is like. And also I've heard that we get some stellar snippets, they're small, of Juden Carden, which I need. I've also been putting off this book. I've owned this book for a couple of years, and I've been putting it off because I've been so afraid to read this. Also, I want to continue my reread of The Cruel Prince, which I can always do while I read this. Like, that's not a big deal. I remember quite a bit about The Cruel Prince in general, so I think I will be able to remember enough to read this series, so I'm excited for it. I've heard really great things about The Stolen Heir. I've heard it's not as good as The Cruel Prince, but it's still really good. Then we have This Wolven Kingdom. This is by Tiara Mafi. Tiara Mafi also wrote the Shatter Me series. There is also another Shatter Me book coming out this year, which I'm really excited for, but that is not what we are talking about. We are talking about this. This I don't know anything about. Like, I did at one point when I first bought it. I knew what it was about, but I've since forgotten, which is fine. I do enjoy going into books blind sometimes, so I'm not really bothered by that. More specifically, the reason that I'm putting this on my 2025 TBR is because of another YouTuber on here named Hallie Bush. I love how expressive she is when it comes to her, like, talking about the series that she loves, and this was a book that I had seen, or a book series that I had seen on her top books of 2025. So I'm intrigued, and I need to know now why she thinks that this is so good. I've also, it's not just been her that I've seen talk about this book. I've seen other people say that this is so good. So I'm intrigued. I need to know, and I'm excited. I do love Tiara Mafi's writing in general, so I'm interested to see something by Tiara Mafi that is not in the Shatter Me series. I think it'll be really cool. Then next up, we are putting The Prison Healer on my 2025 TBR. The Prison Healer itself will be a reread for me. I did not really want to put rereads on my TBR, but I have not finished this trilogy, and I would like to more specifically read the whole trilogy this year, just because I really loved the first Prison Healer book when I read it back in 2022. It was really fun, and it was really good, and I need to continue the series. I've heard so many people say so many great things about this whole series, so we We're following Kiva. From what I can remember, Kiva has lived at this prison as their healer for a very long time. A bunch of stuff goes down. We get a love interest, and then it's like she's entered into these trials to prevent this other person from being in these trials. Things like that. So I'm interested to see what becomes of that. I remember quite a bit about this book, but I can't really, like, I only remember these spoilery parts of it, and obviously I can't really, you know, convey those to you if you have not read them. I'm interested to see how this series continues and eventually wraps up. From what I remember of The Prison Healer, you know, I absolutely loved it, and I feel as though it is time for me to finish it. Speaking of time for me to finish books, the next book that I have here is Red Queen. This is by Victoria Aveyard. I will need to go back and look, but as far as I know, I have never completed this book. I think I have tried to listen to the audiobook so many times. First of all, I've tried to physically read it. I've tried to listen to the audiobook, and I think I've DNF'd it both times. And if I finished it, I don't remember it at all. I thought that it would be the perfect time for me to pick this up. I think I tried to pick it up in 2023 because I was really in my Powerless era. Of course, if you know anything about Powerless, you know that Lauren Roberts specifically says that Powerless is both a combination of The Hunger Games and Red Queen, so I'm intrigued. Outside of that, I've always been intrigued by this book. I bought this whole series way before Powerless even come out, but I think that it's time for me to read it. I don't want to say I'm going to read the whole series this year because I just want to see how I feel about Red Queen. If I like Red Queen, then I'll continue the series, but if I don't, then I'm not going to. And then the next book is A Gathering of Shadows. This is by V.E. Schwab. This is a book that I need to read it. I need to continue this series because I absolutely love the first book, which is A Darker Shade of Magic. I gave A Darker Shade of Magic 5 stars last year, and I've never continued the series since, so I really want to get back into this. I miss Kel and Delilah so much, so I really just want to get back into this and see what we're doing. But in the first one, we're following Kel, and Kel can magically go between these 4 different Londons. There's Red London, Black London, White London, and Grey London. Black London fell. Something happens, and Kel has to make his way back to Black London, and they are going through all of these Londons to get there. It's wild. I need to see what book 2 is going to be about because in a way, book 1 wrapped up. Sort of, but not really, but kind of. There were some things that happened that I think we need to explore and we need to talk about because I need to know if they resolve or not. Really, the rest of this series, which is this book and the last book, and then maybe, what is it called? The Threads of Power? Maybe. We'll see. I want to get through this first. I put V.E. Schwab on my TBR last year. While I did not read the book that was supposed to be on my TBR, I did read 2 other V.E. Schwab books. Well, V.E. Schwab and Victoria Schwab, they're the same person, but I did read both of those and I absolutely love them, so I don't see why I wouldn't read more of V.E. Schwab. We're putting V.E. Schwab back on the TBR this year. Next up, I have The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn series. In the US, it is called just Mistborn, so it's the same thing. I have heard so many good things about this book and the entire series that follows it. I have finished a Brandon Sanderson book, so I'm feeling more confident now that I can finish Brandon Sanderson. Even though the Brandon Sanderson book that I read was a young adult, I still have confidence that I can read this. I don't know what this is about. You couldn't tell me. Well, I have been told, but you know, I couldn't tell you. The best that I know is that we are following 2 characters, and then there's the magic that's like the metal that can manipulate metal, or they can, I don't know. Don't ask because I have no idea. Again, just heard great things all around from Katie, from just TikTok in general. general, I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. And I'm not as scared of this book anymore as I once was. Even though the font just does kind of really give me the ick. And it does remind me of a book that I would have read in like high school. It kind of reminds me of like a classic font that was forced upon me. I did also get the Kindle edition of this, so we're gonna try to read it like that, and I may also see if I can pick up the audiobook. Then next up we have When the Moon Hatched. This is a book that came out last year and I have put it on a few TBRs. I think I put it on every single seasonal TBR that I built last year, which is kind of embarrassing. I'm just a little bit intimidated by this book because I've heard people say it's so hard to get into, but I know that once I'm into it and once I understand it, then I'll be okay. And also with this edition, they did not put the glossary in the front. So if you've read this, I've seen people before say that you need to read the glossary before you read this book. Do you actually need to read the glossary? I need to know. If you've read this, what do you think? Should I read the glossary? Should I not read the glossary? What do I do here? All I know about this book, there's dragons in here and it's like supposed to be kind of like a fantasy romance, I believe. So other than that, that's all I know. The very last book that I am putting on my 2024 TBR, you can't see the title of it, but it is Chain of Gold. The Last Hour series in general was on my 2024 TBR, but I'm just putting Chain of Gold on my 2025 TBR. That's not to say that I won't read the whole series, but I think that for right now I'm going to start with Chain of Gold and then we will see. But I've heard really great things about this series. So this series pretty much follows the Infernal Devices kids. So the people in the Infernal Devices, we follow their children in here. I love the Infernal Devices. As you guys know, that was one of my top books of the year. I need to continue this series. I need to see what this is all about. I need to continue the Shadowhunters world, period, because now that I'm in it, I'm less intimidated by it. I still don't know if I'll ever read the Mortal Instruments, but I do at least want to read the Dark Artifices because the next and the newest series that she's coming out with, I believe, is after the Dark Artifices. And then like a couple of honorable mentions because I forgot to cognitively think about these, but I do want to obviously continue Throne of Glass. I'm on currently book 4 technically, but I'm counting it as 3. I don't know if I really want to read The Assassin's Blade, which might be a crime, but I don't know that I'm that invested. I'll contemplate it. I will let you guys know. Another honorable mention that I forgot to put on here that I want to read this year is the Sword of Kaigen. That is a high fantasy that I had seen compared to Avatar: The Last Airbender. That just intrigues me. I think it's though mostly because of the magic system. They have like elemental magic. So, but with that being said, that is it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. It's probably going to be a little bit on the shorter side, and I'm so sorry, but I just wanted to talk through my TBR. I'm very happy with the books that I've picked out for my 2025 TBR this year, and I cannot wait to see where this reading year takes me. Comment down below what you guys are reading for 2025. Do you have any good book recommendations for 2025? I am all ears, and if you guys have read anything that I mentioned today, let me know in the comments below and we can chat about that as well. Also, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It helps out the channel, makes my heart smile. Also, we are trying to upload every Sunday. No, now that I'm uploading on Monday, I'm saying Sunday. Oh my god. We are trying to upload every Monday and Friday currently, so make sure that you tap that subscribe button as well as that post notification bell just to make sure you're always notified when I upload a video. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.